Okay, purpose of this video is to go through some of the questions that will be on the final. I'm letting a few extra people in here. All right. Thanks for being here. Thanks for showing some extra time and some extra effort to prepare for your final. Also, you guys remember, if you're one of the people like me, you couldn't wait to find out how you did on your final. I've already done about half of one of the free response questions for all of the classes. Send me an email. Just don't send me an email every day. Send me an email to hold on a second. Send me an email to ask how you're doing, and I can give you a status check. I'm going to stop my video. All right, here we go. All right, we're going to do all the Unit 1 stuff first, then the Unit 2 stuff, then the Unit 3 stuff. Here we go, kids. Okay, what are two locations on Earth where hotspots can be found within tectonic plates? Remember, a hotspot is an area that you have volcanism, and remember, earthquake activity is typically associated with volcanism as well, away from a plate boundary. Plate boundaries, we expect volcanoes, we expect earthquakes. A hotspot is a place usually in the middle of a tectonic plate where you would not expect to find volcanism. And this should go all the way back to, this is going to be, some of the tectonic cycling was in chapter 6, but this was in your Intro to Earth Science class notes, so that is something that you definitely should have out. And just for giggles, for those of you that have already done a good deal of preparation, insert giggle here, keep track of how many points you accumulate throughout the game. And I'll give you a total at the end, or you can add it up when you see the game board. That'll let you know approximately how many of the questions you did not know the answer to, assuming there are any. Okay, here we go. Answer forthcoming. Okay, Hawaii is a hotspot, not near a plate boundary. Yellowstone National Park is a hotspot in the middle of the North American plate, and Iceland also is a hotspot. So those are three locations you would expect to find volcanism away from a plate boundary. All right, here we go. For each increase of 1 on an earthquake's Richter scale, it means that there is how many times more energy released? The tilt of the Earth and its revolution around the sun cause blanks on planet Earth. Revolution is the same as an orbit. A lot of people get rotation. Rotation gives us day and night. It does not influence what I am asking you about, but the orbit around the sun does. I'm going to give you guys about 1 minute per question on these, but I want to make sure that we finish within the hour because I do have a meeting at 1 o'clock. If you guys have any clarification questions that you want to ask me, especially about the earth science stuff, I have a big background in that. I taught earth science for a number of years. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. But again, remember, your voice will be on the video. Oh, and I'm going to take this opportunity to embarrass my youngest son. If you know who Gage is, my youngest son, it's his birthday today. So feel free to wish him a happy birthday or embarrass him on his social media. Do something, because that's what parents' jobs are, to embarrass their kids. He is 17 today. And of course, he'll be mortified to know that that is on the video that tons of kids are going to watch. Okay. All right, here we go. Answer forthcoming. All right, it's logarithmic. So a 6.0 compared to a 5.0 is 10 times the amount of energy. That's why when we start talking about sevens and eights and nines, we're talking about immense amounts of energy that get released. And the seasons. So it's the orbit around the sun and the 23.5-degree tilt of the Earth that gives us our seasons. All right, here we go. Let me get my timer going. Bam. All right, Greenland melts, exposing soil, bedrock, absorbing more radiation, making it hotter, making more ice melt. This is what? And be specific as you can. Which layer of the atmosphere has the most of the pollution and leads to more global warming? Sorry, global warming than the others. A decrease in blank will likely result in an increase in phytoplankton mutation. So remember, layers of the atmosphere. We live in the troposphere. That's the lower layer. Then there's the stratosphere. Then there's the mesosphere. Then there is the thermosphere. And then there is the outer layer, the exosphere. And again, for the first question, be as specific as you can. Tell me what type of the thing I'm looking for, if you know. And the third question is also related to something in one of the Earth's atmosphere layers. All right. And again, sorry for the snafu on the video last week. I didn't realize that when I use Screencastify, which is what I use to record my screen, that there was a setting on there for the microphone. Obviously, we need the microphone to work, so you can have my voice on the video. And I was listening to 80s music on my phone, and when I posted the video to YouTube, they said, "Oh, you can't play music. That's copyright infringement." So I had to take the whole thing. I was creating labs and talking to myself, so then I had to do a silent video because I was in a training last Wednesday evening. So not making that same mistake this time. Although I am listening to holiday music through my earphones. Or earphone, as it were. About 30 seconds. All right, here we go. Answers are forthcoming. Okay, so that is a positive feedback loop. Remember, don't make the same mistake that kids make thinking positive means whether it's good or bad. Positive just simply means it's a cascading effect. It continues to make things work. A negative feedback loop is one that the result counteracts it, so it kind of balances out. Troposphere. So most of the pollutants and most of the greenhouse gases are in the layer of the atmosphere that we live in, and that makes sense because we create a lot of greenhouse gas. And then ozone, loss of ozone, which is in the stratosphere, is letting more UV radiation through, which is causing an increase in phytoplankton mutations, which is also causing skin cancer in humans and other organisms as well. All right, here we go. Let me move this out of the way. All right. Fertilizer production removes what element from the atmosphere? 1 extra point. If another was found in the atmosphere, it would remove it also. Fertilizer production. This is, the second part's a hypothetical. The difference between the rate of replenishment and consumption can be used to determine if a resource is being used how. During what climatic event would the sea surface temperature and rainfall be higher near the countries of Ecuador and Peru, which, just to remind you, are on the eastern side of the Pacific, or the west coast of South America. Oh, shoot, I forgot my timer. Still got some people popping in. It's awesome. Welcome for those of you that are joining the meeting. Just a quick reminder, if you want clarification on any of this or you have questions about this content, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away, but do remember that I'm recording this video, therefore your question would be on the recording as well. We are at the end of the first column. We are about halfway through the Earth Science / Chapter 1, 2, and 3 information, and we are doing one unit at a time. Okay, about one more minute. Again, I would recommend having your study guide out, and then I also would have the Earth Science class notes, which is really the only content that wasn't covered in the book. Thanks. All right, here we come with the answers. Okay, so let's see. Nitrogen, okay, is found in the atmosphere and is removed in fertilizer production. Remember, nitrogen and phosphorus are the two big nutrients that we put in fertilizers, but remember, phosphorus is only found as a solid, not as a gas. Therefore, it is not found in the atmosphere. Okay, that is the definition of sustainability. And El Nino is the phenomenon that changes climates worldwide, but it happens in the Pacific, specifically warm water that normally is over on the west side of the Pacific near Australia, Indonesia, the Philippines. The trade winds slow or stop, and then that warm water migrates back towards South America. Remember, fish like cold water, so when the warm water shows up, they die or they leave the area, and it creates a lot more warm water, causes a lot more evaporation and a lot more rainfall, so flooding hurts the fishing industry, and of course it affects climates worldwide. All right, here we go. True or false? Microwaves, UV light, infrared light, and radio waves are all types of electromagnetic radiation. I am so excited. One of my students in biology who's really been struggling um, turned in a ton of makeup work yesterday, and it looks like they might pull through. I'm so excited for them. I'm entering late work on my personal laptop while we're doing this. About 20 more seconds. All right, here we go. Those are all types of electromagnetic radiation. All right. The greatest value of the blank blank is best stated as it removes bias from observations of natural phenomena, for example, climate change. In a closed system of constant mass, the energy involved in any physical or chemical change is neither created nor destroyed, but simply changed from one to another. What is that statement? All right, here come the answers, kids. All right, the greatest value of the scientific method. So all these climate change deniers and the deniers that said cigarette smoke doesn't harm people. Yeah, that goes into the media, but the scientific method can disprove that stuff. And remember, all those yahoos out there who pretend to be scientists or say, I'm the head of the blah, blah, blah research institute. Yeah, that's pseudo science. People with scientific backgrounds are the ones that disprove that bunk stuff. And that statement is the first law of thermodynamics. You will have to know the difference between the first and second law of thermodynamics. What's the first step in the scientific method? Rising warm air turns into rain because as the air mass cools, it is able to hold blank moisture as it rises. That's a more or less answer. You tell me which one it is. True or false? A utilitarian believes forests are there to provide fuel wood for humans. A utilitarian, what do they believe? So for the second question, what you really need to know is, do you expect to find air to be warmer near the surface or warmer the further you get from the surface? And then also, you're going to have to know how gas molecules act as temperature increases or decreases. And if you know all that, you know why precipitation takes place. All right, here come the answers. All right, first step is to have a question or have an observation. So it's warmer near the surface, and all of the layers of our atmosphere, except for the stratosphere, because remember, stratosphere has ozone. Ozone absorbs UV, which actually increases the temperature the further you get from the surface. But the troposphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, exosphere, as you get further from the surface, it gets colder. Gas molecules vibrate less as they get colder. Therefore, they condense, they form droplets, they form rain droplets, and then they fall out of the sky. So it's able to hold less moisture as it rises because it's colder as you get further from the surface. And a utilitarian believes forests and all of the animals and plants within them are there for us to use. So they are kind of the opposite of what a conservationist would be, or an environmentalist would be. We believe, and hopefully you believe, that the environment is not there for us to use. It is there for us to enjoy and not destroy. All right, here we go. Drought, population size, competition, climate change, and deforestation are all reasons for human blank. The definition that natural systems left undisturbed by people tend towards a type of steady state describes what? And the tilt of the Earth and the orbit of the Earth around the sun cause global blank blank. Yeah, we're going to have to speed this up a little bit. We're about halfway through the Zoom and not even close to being halfway through the questions. That's okay. That just simply means I'll be giving you guys a little bit less time to look these up. My bad. My bad. All right, here we go. Okay, starvation and famine are results of all of these types of things. Dynamic equilibrium, that is the definition of dynamic equilibrium, and circulation patterns. Global circulation patterns are ocean currents and wind currents, and the seasons definitely influence those currents. All right, here we go. Okay, hold on. Go. All right. Order the diagrams that indicate the fastest population growth rate to the slowest population growth rate. And of course, you'll do that by doing BAC, ABC, or CAB. So you're going to have to know what shape indicates a population growth rate. All right, here we go. Correct order is A. All right, so these are younger people, which means that they are more fertile and more likely to have children. So the larger it is at the base, the faster the growth rate. Okay, this one is the next largest at the base, and this one is the smallest at the base. Okay, so A, C, and then B. Okay. Continued growth of a population after fertility drops to replacement level is an example of blank blank. That, if I'm not mistaken, was a warm-up question. If a country has a crude birth rate of 75 per 1,000 and a crude death rate of 25 per 1,000, what's the percentage increase annually, or what is the population growth rate? Remember, there is a document. There aren't any answers, so I apologize for those of you guys that struggle with math like I do. There's a document in the Google Classroom that shows you all of the type of math you're going to need to know on the final. Hopefully, you've already looked at that. Hopefully, you have worked out a lot of those solutions. Again, my apologies for not putting the solutions out there, but doing the work and looking things up is what helps you learn the information. All right, here we go. All right, so that is what is defined as population momentum. And the population growth rate is 5%. That's simply the crude birth rate minus the crude death rate, that solution or that difference, and then you divide that by 10. Okay, if a large forested area is fragmented into many smaller ones, this change will likely result in a decrease in the blank blank with species in the original forest. I know that's kind of an obscure question. I'm sorry. If an island is closer to the mainland and larger overall, the biodiversity will be expected to be higher or lower. Which law of thermodynamics is represented by the 10% energy transfer from one trophic level to the next during a feeding relationship? All right, here come the answers. Okay, so it's going to be a decrease in the gene flow. If an island is closer to the mainland and larger, it's more likely to have migrants from the mainland, therefore the biodiversity should be larger. And that describes the second law of thermodynamics. What is the net annual primary productivity of a particular environment if the gross annual primary productivity is 100,000 kilocalories per square meter and the respiration by the environment's producers is 40,000 kilocalories per square meter in 1 year? True or false? Tundra would have a large amount of net primary productivity. Rainforest deforestation indirectly increases which greenhouse gas in the atmosphere? All right, here come the answers. Okay, so it's 60,000. It's NPP equals GPP, gross primary productivity, minus the respiration. Okay. Let's see, true or false? Tundra, remember, most of that stuff is going to be frozen underneath, and it didn't get a whole lot of sunlight to begin with, so that is not a place with a large amount of primary productivity. And remember, carbon dioxide is removed by photosynthesis. So if you cut down trees and no photosynthesis takes place, number one, you're burning the trees likely, and CO2 is going in the atmosphere. And the CO2 that's in the atmosphere doesn't get pulled out. So that increases carbon dioxide. It is a double whammy, so to speak. Which scientific principle is demonstrated by the data relationship in that graph? All right, here comes the answer. That is the competitive exclusion principle. As you can see, one continues to go up, one starts to decline. Something is causing this one to decline. It's because it's being competed with and it's losing. All right, moving on. What type of succession occurs in order to add a soil layer when none exists previously? If a population has 10,000 members, 250 births, 150 deaths, 100 immigrants, 50 immigrants, remember, emigrate means to leave. What is the net annual growth rate? All right, here comes the answer. A primary succession needs to add a soil layer when none exists previously. 1.5%. So it's 250 minus 150, that sum or that difference plus this. So it's the sum of those divided by original population 10,000 times 100% to put it into a percentage. What natural process reduces the amount of carbon dioxide in the troposphere? An organism that provides shelter and food needed for other species in the ecosystem is an example of a blank species. Draw an example of a food chain you might find in a tundra ecosystem with 3 organisms. I'm going to clean this up just 1 second. Save it. Come on. Okay. All right, here come the answers. Okay, so photosynthesis naturally takes CO2 out of the atmosphere. Keystone species. By the way, I was doing an online training last Wednesday, and a training was being hosted by some marine biologists, and it was about ocean acidification and corals. Lots of people assume that all corals are keystone species, and one of the scientists made sure to correct that misconception. People think that they're really, really important because they, attract other organisms, et cetera, et cetera. But that alone does not make them a keystone species. He said some of them are, but there are other characteristics that have to be met. Just a fun fact about that. Let's see. So a grass being eaten by a mouse, being eaten by a fox is a food chain you could see in a tundra. Forests and oceans are both large blanks for carbon as it cycles in nature. The main reason for species endangerment due to human activity is what? That was a warm-up question. Which rock type contains the greatest number of fossils? Matter of fact, it's the only rock type to contain any fossils at all. All right, here we go. Those are both large reservoirs or sinks. Habitat loss or fragmentation is the main reason for species endangerment. And sedimentary rocks are the only ones that have fossils, and that's because they don't get exposed to extreme amounts of heat and pressure. They don't get metamorphosed. They don't get changed. They don't get melted due to volcanic activity. They're stable environments in which those rocks form. All right, on to Unit 3. This should be fresh in your brainiums. List the letters for the following steps in order for eutrophication. So we got fish kill, decomposition lowers oxygen, algal bloom blocks the sunlight, nutrients enter surface water, or submerged vegetation dies. Put those in the correct order if we're talking about eutrophication. Okay, about 15 more seconds. All right, here we go. Correct order is DC, EBA, the Deceba. I'm not going to read them all off because they're right there. That is the order. Of course, it always would start with nutrients entering the surface water, so that's a good indicator. Moving on. Which major U.S. estuary was declared a dead zone? Remember, an estuary is a location where you have fresh water and salt water mixing. They're typically at the edges, or pardon me, at the ends of rivers or streams emptying into the ocean. What is the root cause of habitat loss, especially in developing nations? That was a warm-up question. All right, here we go. Chesapeake Bay has been declared a dead zone, and poverty leads to habitat loss, clearing forests for, to raise cattle, plant crops, sell the tree for lumber. All of those come from poverty. Here we go. Smokestack emissions from a large smelting company is an example of what type of pollution? What category? Coal burning power plants and light water nuclear reactors both emit what type of pollution into local rivers? Chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, are really bad because they destroy blank, and they also act as a blank, heating up the atmosphere. All right, here come the answers. All right, those are point source. Point source, you can literally point and say it's coming from that smokestack right there. Both of those types of plants emit warm water, which is a form of thermal pollution. And the ozone layer is being destroyed by CFCs, and they also act as a greenhouse gas. So they do have a good function in terms of blocking UV, but they have a bad function of absorbing more solar radiation. This is the Goldilocks planet. It's just right, but it's getting less and less just right every day. I should make a bumper sticker. All right. Match the following location and vessel with the pollutant: Minamata, Exxon Valdez, Bhopal, India, methyl isocyanate, mercury, and crude oil. A lid of warm air that traps cool air and pollution beneath it is called what type of phenomenon? Earth's surface temperature is livable because solar radiation is absorbed by blanks in the atmosphere. Yeah, I'm really going to have to speed this up. I got a meeting in 8 minutes. All right, here come the answers. This should be fresh. Matter of fact, I think some of these questions, if not all of them, were on your unit test. Okay, so 1, Minamata is mercury. 2, Exxon Valdez is crude oil. And then Bhopal, India is methyl isocyanate. That is a temperature inversion. Inverted means opposite, is the opposite of what you would expect. Normally warmer near the surface, cooler further up. This is cooler at the surface, warmer further up. And greenhouse gases keep the atmosphere warm and livable. We got to zip through these questions, kiddos. True or false? A warmer atmosphere would include reduced ranges of tropical diseases, more intense hurricanes, typhoons, and increased crop damage from pests and diseases. All right, here we go. That is false. It would include an increased range of tropical disease. Be really careful on those all of the above questions. Make sure you read every response. Here we go. Sudden or persistent blank may lead to permanent hearing loss. Which famous climate change agreement did George Bush and the U.S. refuse to ratify? All right, here we go. Noise pollution. And matter of fact, I suffer from a little hearing loss myself from all the concerts I've gone to. The U.S. was a very unpopular country when we did not ratify this agreement. It was us and Kazakhstan. Every other nation in the world ratified it, but we didn't. All right, here we go. True or false? Deforestation of tropical dry and rainforests is contributing to global warming. Which gas is removed by scrubbers in smokestacks? Which of the following is least likely to be affected by biomagnification? Carnivore or an herbivore? All right, here come the answers, kids. That is true. Deforestation of tropical dry and rainforests is contributing to global warming, primarily because they're burning a lot of that stuff, or they're growing cows on it, which produce methane, and the CO2 doesn't get removed by the plants. Which gas is removed? Sulfur dioxide. And herbivores, because they are closer, well, they're closer to the bottom of the food chain. Remember, biomagnification takes multiple feeding relationships for that toxin, whatever it is, to build up to harmful levels. So carnivores, top carnivores, would be most affected. All right, last questions. Blank is hazardous to animals because it is similar in structure to sex hormones. The classification of this type of pollutant is what? True or false? Atmospheric temperature inversions make forest fire smoke negatively affect air quality over large regional areas more than normal. Boy, oh boy, that's a mouthful. All right, almost out of time, so I got to show you guys the answers. Here we go. DDT. Okay, remember DDT thinned the eggshells of bald eagles, and then we banned it in this country. Those types of things mimic endocrine. Well, they mimic sex hormones, and we refer to those as endocrine disruptors. And that is a true statement. Temperature inversions do cause that. All right, you guys, thanks for being here. I'll have this video uploaded by this evening. Enjoy the rest of your day.